So this video is going to talk about 3 new tools called Revolve, Sweep, and Loft. And so these 3 tools are the other ways we have to create 3-dimensional objects from a sketch. So we've already used extrude, which is basically just going in a straight out from a sketch to make it 3-dimensional. Revolve, the idea here is that we're going to take our sketch and rotate it to make it 3-dimensional. Sweep is a little bit more involved. This one's going to use 2 different sketches. And so you'll have one sketch that is actually going to be extruded kind of along another sketch rather than in a straight line. It's going to be extruded along another sketch. And then a loft is taking 2 sketches that are usually parallel to each other. They don't actually have to be, but then kind of merging the 2 together in a nice smooth way. So we'll look at a way to kind of doing these. I'm not going to worry too much about putting in dimensions on any of these sketches because I just want to show you the tools. But of course, in real life, if you were making something that had to have a specific size, you need to put dimensions in there. So let's talk about Revolve first. So when we use the Revolve tool, you're going to be creating something usually circular or cylindrical in nature. And the idea is to make that shape like half of it, and then when you turn it, you'll see what happens here. So I always like to start off with a vertical line to represent kind of my center axis. And then from there, what we get to do is we get to draw the shape. And you're kind of thinking of drawing like half of the shape here. So maybe I'm drawing something that looks like, I don't know, just making something up here so you can kind of see an example of it. But maybe I'm drawing something like that. Right, normally I'm going to need to add dimensions in there, but I just want to show you what this Revolve tool does. So I've got my center axis, I've got my shape that's going to be spun. So I'm finishing my sketch, and rather than using extrude, I'm going to use Revolve. Now, these tools are going to take a few more clicks and a few more things that you've got to select than just extrude. So take a look here. The blue box is telling me what I need to click on now. So it says faces and sketch regions to revolve. So I'm going to click on this. That's the region I want to revolve. So now that one has got something in it, but this revolve axis turned red, which means that's what it's still waiting for. So if I click on that, it's now asking me to, okay, now select the axis. And for me, that's this line here. When I click on that and go to a 3-dimensional view, you'll see what happened. It took that sketch and it rotated it around, and as it swept through that area, it made that part 3-dimensional. Now I've got another option down here, which is how far I want to go. Full is just a full circle. One direction, though, is going to give me an option of how far I want to go. So I can go any certain number of degrees, and this is kind of going to show you what's going on here. If my computer doesn't crash, that'd be great. And you can kind of see that it's, as you go, it's sweeping out more and more of that area. You can also do things like symmetric or different amounts in 2 different directions, but 90% of the time for what we're doing, it's going to be full. You want to make it full revolution there. And then you hit the checkbox and you've got your revolved part, which looks something like that. All right. Okay. Next one we want to do, that's our revolve. You're going to be trying that out here in just a sec. Next one we're going to want to do is called the sweep tool. Now the sweep tool lets us take a sketch, and instead of just extruding it in a straight line, it lets us follow any path that we want. And so we need 2 sketches here. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my path. So along this top plane, I'm going to go ahead and make my path. I can make this path anything I want. I can use lines, I can use arcs, I can use splines, I can use pretty much anything. Splines are kind of fun. Let's do that. So what a spline does is it just lets me take any points and it automatically creates some sort of a weird shape that goes through all of them. So there's my path. That's what it's going to follow. Okay. Next up, let's get the right view here. Next up, I'm done with that sketch. That's my path. The next thing I need is a shape that's going to follow that path. And the big thing is the shape needs to be in contact with that path to start with. So that's why I started that at the origin. And the next shape I'm going to make is going to be on a perpendicular plane, the front plane, and it's going to also be containing the origin. So I could do something as simple as a circle. On this front plane, I could draw a circle. Maybe I want to make it 0.5 for the diameter. And I'm going to finish that sketch. So here's what's going on. On the front, I've got my circle. On the top, I've got my path, and we are ready to go. So now I can use the sweep tool, and it's going to ask me for two things. It's going to say the face or the sketch region to sweep. That's the circle. So I click on that. Now this one said red, so I'm going to click on it, and now it's asking me for the sweep path. That's my little curvy line I made. Now take a look at what happens here once it finally loads. It's taking forever. There we go. So it just took that shape and it just followed that circle around. Now I've got some options here. There's it's not just that one option. I can hit keep profile orientation, which is going to make it so that circle stays facing the same direction, and it doesn't like that because I ended up curving back around on itself, so I can't do that. And so what it's doing is just keeping that circle. So this would be really nice for things like wires and pipes and things like that. One of the ones we used to have us do is a paperclip. So your two sketches here are the actual paperclip shape. Uh-oh, we're freezing my computer here. Just a sec, maybe I can do something here. So I've got my actual paperclip shape in one sketch. And then I've got just this sketch 2 is just this circle right here. And when I sweep them, when I sweep that little circle all the way around, I end up with that kind of paperclip shape, which is kind of cool. Not saying that's useful a lot, but it's kind of an interesting tool. So think about what you could make with that. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so the last one here is the Loft tool. This one is kind of useful. It's kind of useful sometimes. So this Loft tool is another one that takes two different sketches, and rather than being like perpendicular where I did one on the top plane and one on the front plane, these two sketches usually are going to be parallel to each other. So I'm going to start by just sketching on the top plane, and I'm going to make some shape. I'm going to make a rectangle centered at the origin. Make it 3 by 4, so it's a rectangle. Okay, I'm done with that. Now, in order to do this, I need another sketch up above it, and so I need to use a sketch plane or a new plane. So the plane, what I can do is I can click on the top plane, and then I'm actually going to drag it up however far I want it to go. Maybe I want it 2 inches above the original plane. And so what I've got now is I've actually got another plane just parallel to that top plane, and I can sketch on that. So maybe in this sketch, I'm going to make a pentagon. So I'll make my shape. I'll say I want it to have 5 sides. You could put some dimensions on there. I'm not going to bother. So what I can do now with my Loft tool that I have 2 dimensions is it's going to ask me to click on as many profiles as I want. So I can click on that shape and I can click on that shape. And what you'll see is it just kind of tries its best to merge the two together. In this case, I went from having something that had 4 sides to something that had 5 sides. So it's doing its best. It looks kind of wonky, but that's kind of cool. I like that. I've got a few options here. You can certainly play around with those, but one of the best things actually is that it's not limited to 2. I could keep going here. So if I wanted to make another one up above it, I could sketch 2 inches above that even. It can be however far apart you want, of course. But I'll make a new plane right above it, and I can sketch on that plane. And now maybe I want to turn this thing into a circle. By the way, are you seeing what that's doing? When I use that circle tool, I'm selecting that automatic point that hops up there. It's just directly above the origin. That's why the origin turned yellow too. So I can make a circle there. Normally you'd want to dimension that, but whatever. So now I click on my Loft, and I'm going to click on all 3 of those. Oops, that didn't work right. There, and there. And you just see it just kind of does its best to blend them all together. You make some pretty crazy points there. If I got rid of this sketch in the middle, it might look a little bit nicer. You've seen shapes that look like that before probably in real life. So that's how you could use the Loft tool. So that's pretty much all of these that we're going to use. There's a couple more in here that are pretty advanced features that we're definitely not going to talk about. All the rest of these are modifiers. So we'll get to that in a little bit, how to add some of these modifiers, shells and holes and fillets and chamfers and things like that. But those are your last of your 3D modeling tools that you can use besides extrude.